At Manengoba High School, Christian was reportedly kidnapped by unknown men at about 5:30 a.m. on Sunday, February 13, 2022. According to the boy's mother, he was kidnapped on his way to the farm. We woke up at about 5 a.m. and dressed up. The child said he will go ahead. I told him when he gets to the farm, he should harvest the maize. I will come. Let's carry it together. When I left the house, my kid sister in Banjun called and asked where the child was. I responded in front, we are going to the farm. She said the Lord just sent her a message that on his way to the farm, someone hit his head. I rushed back home, and his elder brother informed me that his kidnappers had demanded a sum of 205,000 before 12 a.m. and if we fail to do so, he will be killed.
Son grand frère vient de me dire que les gens l'ont demandé 205 000 avant 12 heures. Que si on ne donne pas 205 000 avant 12 heures, on va le tuer.
The Quinter head of the county will mobilize the population after receiving the information for the expansions.
Ce matin, aux environs de, je crois c'est 6h30.
At about 6:30 a.m., I received information that there is a problem in my quarter. I was told a child who went to the farm with his mom has been kidnapped. The child was kidnapped by unknown men.
L'enfant était devant, sa mère était derrière, et que la maman était surprise, elle était éloignée, et elle a été surprise qu'on l'appelle depuis Bafoussam pour demander que où est.
He sent a message to his sister in the West region, who later called their mother, who was surprised. There is general panic, and the police has been alerted.
La mère était surprise, subitement, la panique générale, et elle s'est rendue à la brigade.
Sergio, one of those who received a message from Christian, narrates how it unfolded. Whenever I wake up in the morning, I check my phone. When I picked up my phone, I saw a message from Sue Christian. He wrote, Sergio, please pray for me. I have been kidnapped. I replied, how is that possible? And he said he is behind a car with his mouth tied. When I asked him where, he said he doesn't want to die. I should pray for him. When I asked further questions, he didn't respond. At Press R, investigation has been launched by law enforcement officials to track down the kidnappers and accomplices. Now, the Lamida of Garwa, North region of Cameroon, has been arrested. His Majesty Ibrahim El Rashidan reportedly killed his nephew Ali Yusuf inside the palace on January 31, 2022. Audrey Zadza with details.
The death of Ali Yusuf, a nephew to the Lamido of Garwa, Ibrahim El Rashidin, on January 31, 2022 at the Garwa's Lamidat, in circumstances not yet elucidated, is still the topic of discussions amongst many, especially in the north region of the country. After the administrative authorities took up the case, demanding the exhumation of the remains for an autopsy, due to several testimonies reporting torture and abuse, the case has been brought before the Garwa Military Tribunal. According to reports, the autopsy quickly confirmed the acts of torture, and the Lamido, a gendarmerie officer with a career in military security, was charged with torture and homicide. The elder sister of the Lamido of Garwa, mother of Ali Yusuf, and 3 members of the father, including 2 soldiers in the service of the death of Alim Hayatu, who was equally Secretary of State to the Minister of Health.
And so Youth Day celebration, youth in Kombo at Bedimo subdivision in Jian division have been called upon to be patriotic and contribute towards nation building. The call was echoed by the divisional officer of Okomba Bedimo subdivision, Bamba Yakuba, during the 56th edition of the National Youth Day in that part of the Kenchikuma Honore with details.
Youths in Aqua, headquarters of Kumbu Abedimo subdivision in Dian division, joined their peers nationwide to celebrate the 56th edition of the National Youth Day. Celebrating on a harmonized theme, youth and volunteering participation in the challenges of Cameroon, the youths came out in their numbers to demonstrate a sense of patriotism to the nation. Unlike in other subdivisions nationwide, the celebrations commenced with a replay of the head of state's address to the youths, translated in English language. This was immediately followed by the march past, with the nursery schools taking the lead, followed by the primary schools. Government Technical College Aqua is the lone secondary school in Kumbu Abedimo subdivision. They made their presence felt during the activities of the 56th edition of the National Youth Day celebrations with a glamoring performance during the march past. Government Teachers Training College Aqua was not left out in the show. Week-long activities to commemorate the National Youth Day celebrations in Kumbu Abedimo subdivision included traditional dances, choral music, campfire, just to name but these few. The celebrations took place under the watchful presence of the divisional officer for Kumbu Abedimo subdivision, Mr. Mbamba Yakubu, Mayor Aboko Patrick, traditional and religious leaders, as well as a host of local and administrative authorities.
In a related story, youths in Limbe 1 subdivision celebrated the 56th edition of the National Youth Day with all enthusiasm after 2 years of recess due to COVID-19 pandemic. Celebrations took place in strict respect of all COVID-19 barrier measures, as Kumar tells us again.
The 56th edition of the National Youth Day celebrations in Limbe 1 subdivision started with the singing of the national anthem upon the arrival of the senior divisional officer for Fako, Emmanuel Ngamba Ledu, who was received by the divisional officer for Limbe 1 subdivision, Innocent Nanje Moni, alongside the interim city mayor of the Limbe City Council and the mayor of Limbe 1 Council. This was closely followed by a replay of the head of state's traditional Youth Day speech to the youths to the listening of all and sundry. Then came the moment for the march past, with the block of the national flag, the coat of arms, and the effigy of the head of state taking the lead. The block carrying the theme of the 56th edition of the National Youth Day was conspicuous, with the theme boldly inscribed on a banner, Youths and Volunteering Participation in the Challenges of Cameroon. Government Nursery School Mile 1 was the first school to march past the grandstand, with the teachers running helter-skelter to ensure that the children represent their school well, taking into consideration that it is the very first time for the children to participate in the march past. A good number of primary schools took part in the march past, with a remarkable performance of the government primary schools and conventional schools. Secondary schools were not left out of the day's activity, with all the government secondary schools in Limbe 1 subdivision participating in the march past. For some, their majorettes and ballet dance groups were part of the march past. The pupils and students marched past the grandstand carrying messages of patriotism, calling for unity, peace, harmony, and social cohesion for an emerging nation like Cameroon. The march past, which lasted 70 minutes, equally saw the participation of youth associations, common initiative groups, with the youth wing of the CPDM party, the lone political party, to take part in the march past. It is worth mentioning that this year's Youth Day celebration in Limbe 1 subdivision took place in strict respect of the barrier measures to fight the spread of COVID-19, with a gap of 1 meter between the marchers respected, as well as the wearing of face masks obligatory.
In the West Region, youths joined their peers nationwide to celebrate the 56th edition of the National Youth Day. Activities marking the celebration of the day took place at the Buddha Ceremonial Ground, as Katrina Kongwe tells us.
Inasmuch as the colors green, red, yellow and the motto of Cameroon were harmoniously displayed, we equally saw the promotion of the Bamileke culture through the exhibition of the Ndop fabric in the context of preserving and valorizing their heritage as some of the ambience that crowned the celebration of the National Youth Day in Buda, chief town of the Bambutus division. According to the divisional officer of Bambutus, the peculiarities of this 56th edition of the National Youth Day was the prevention and sanitation measures put in place by the quarters in charge.
Je note que la jeunesse du département de Bambutus.
I want to mention that the youths of Bambutus division were terrified by the suspension of the March Pass for over 2 to 3 years due to coronavirus. As you can see behind me, the students had to sit to actually take time to watch those who were selected to march this year and regain that spirit and joy of the Youth Day celebration, which was lost over the years. Going by the turnout of political parties, only youths of the ruling CPDM party responded with a patriotic motion of support to the President of the Republic, President Paul Biya. The ceremony ended with the handing over of awards and diplomas of excellence to deserving persons, void of any chaos due to tight security.
Still in line with Youth Day activities, youth in Bipindi, a locality in Ocean Division of the South region of Cameroon, demonstrated their love for fatherland as they came out massively to give the 56th edition of the National Youth Day the grandeur it deserves. Details on this with Nolinga.
2 years after no outdoor manifestations on the 11th of February due to the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic, children and youth of Bipindi, a locality in the Ocean Division of the South region of Cameroon, turned out in their numbers during the 56th edition of the National Youth Day in Cameroon. Aligning with the theme for celebration this year, youth and voluntary participation in the challenges of Cameroon, the March Past Parade was launched by the very young kindergarten pupils, secondary school students, followed by those of the higher institutes of learning, plus youths from the different political parties, with those from the Cameroon People Democratic Movement, CPDM ruling party, carrying their day. And in appreciation, the sub-divisional officer for Bipindi had this to say. I sincerely want to thank the youths for turning out massively this day that has been set aside to enable them demonstrate their love for fatherland. Following the massive and satisfactory participation of the youths, these ones have also expressed satisfaction. On my part, I would like to appreciate the organizing committee for mobilizing the youths of Bipindi. You can see for yourselves the dynamism and participation of the youths. Well, everything has gone well, from the March Past to just everything. So I can only say a big kudos to the organizing committee. At the end of the 56th edition of the Youth Day in Bipindi, youths in this part of the country have gone home satisfied, anticipating next year's celebration.
Away from Youth Day celebration, the minister delegated at the presidency in charge of Supreme State or the Mba Rusacha today launched a capacity building workshop of city mayors across the national territory. The 4-day workshop aims at digging deep in some of the ill practices going on in some of these councils. Lithuania Center Regional Correspondent Colette Lum with details.
It's solemnity and enthusiasm that I take the floor before you today to declare the solemn opening of the workshop on notions of irregularities, mismanagement, damage, and liability in the management of local authorities.
It is with these words from the minister delegate at the presidency in charge of the Supreme State Audit Office, Ba-Achar Rose, that the capacity building workshop kickstart in Yaoundé today, February 15, 2022. The workshop, which will go on for 4 days, aimed at getting to the root of the irregularity and corrupt practices ongoing in most city councils across the national territory.
They've just been elected, and it is necessary that they should know the legislative and regulatory instruments that govern their day-to-day work. And besides that, we want them to master the good practices that a company are known to be when governance of public finance, so that they can properly discharge their functions.
The mayor of the Kumba City Council expressed his readiness to acquire new skills to improve, as well as his colleagues in their different constituencies.
Following the opportunities that we have been given as city mayors, I also speak in place of course, the municipal treasurers. As city mayors, most especially, I want to make it very clear that you don't go through any training, any particular training to become a city mayor. Which means you are thrown, I would say, into cold waters, and you have to see exactly how to sort out the issues, the daily activities, the responsibilities that you kind of like win automatically. That is one of the reasons why I think it's an absolute necessity that we are here today for us to get brilliant, through, I would say, certain managerial processes which normally we do not have a mastery over. So it is an opportunity for us to have this training and become, more seasoned in our respective responsibilities.
This first day of the workshop ended with a photo session of dignitaries such as the Minister of Decentralization and Local Development, George Obam, with the Mayor of the Yaoundé City Council and other participants, including women who were all present in the opening day, with each ready to table their financial budget from today to Friday, February 18, the end of the workshop.
On to health, our reporter Bokengo Wadi focuses on congenital heart defect, which is a group of heart conditions, and the month of February has been set aside to raise awareness regarding the condition. Her report.
Affecting an estimated 1.35 million babies yearly, congenital heart defect is an abnormality of the heart of a baby that develops before birth, which can affect the structure and functioning of the heart, bearing different forms such as valve defect, tetralogy of Fallot, hole in heart or septal defect, ventricular septal defect, atrial septal defect, single ventricle, pulmonary atresia, hypoplastic left heart syndrome, coarctation of the aorta, and many more. The health condition possesses signs and symptoms which may differ due to the defect affecting the baby, its type, and severity. However, some general signs and symptoms in baby to watch out for include sleepiness, tiredness during feeding, fast or difficulty in breathing, swollen body parts, tissues, or organs, blue-tinted skin, abnormal development, shortness of breath, and many more. It is worth mentioning that a child is born with a form or type of congenital heart defect around the world every 15 minutes, and an estimated 25 of these children will need at least one successful heart surgery before their first birthday. The health condition has no known cause. However, a combination of genes and some factors such as environment, smoking, alcohol consumption, lack of physical exercise, or diet, some medication, and more consumed during pregnancy can birth any kind and form of congenital heart defect. To this regard, Congenital Heart Defect Awareness Week seeks to encourage pregnant women on the need of a good lifestyle choice during pregnancy and the importance of folic acid consumption before, during, and after pregnancy, especially during their first trimester, so as to help lower the risk of birthing a child with congenital heart defect, as well as global burden worldwide.
News on the African continent. Staff Lady Arlene Summer visited Sudan, Tanzania, and Tunisia. She brought back the following.
Let's begin our tour of Africa in Sudan, where 2 Sudanese protesters were shot dead by security forces on Monday. This is according to a union of doctors. This takes the number of those killed since October's coup last year to at least 80. It is worth mentioning that the latest pro-democracy protest on Monday took place in several cities and towns across the country to reject military rule and call for the release of recently arrested politicians. Note here that since last week, 3 politicians who had once been in the ruling Sovereign Council have been detained. Over in Tanzania, a man has shocked his village by building his own grave in preparation for his death. Patrick Kimaru, 59, says his family is slowly accepting his decision, which is viewed by the community as a bad omen. According to traditional leaders from Mr. Kimaru's ethnic group in Kilimanjaro region, a grave should not be dug in anticipation of death and it should not be empty for long. The Tanzanian man, Mr. Kimaru, who is a police officer, said that he started building his grave in of refugees in Tunisia have protested, complaining about their treatment and demanding to be evacuated. The migrants, a majority from Sudan and sub-Saharan countries, held a sitting in front of United Nations offices in the southern post of Zaziz. Note here that some held banners carrying messages like "Stop the violence against us." However, Tunisian Coast Guard intercepted nearly 20,000 migrants trying to cross the Mediterranean to Europe during the first 3 quarters of 2021.
Eileen Sama's report ends today's edition of Prime News on My Media, Prime Television. My name is Fon Quinter. Coming up at exactly 7 p.m. is Prime Hour with Kum Leonard and his guest. Have a great evening in the company of more programs on the African Eye. Good night.